Aha, can you hear me better now? Can you hear me better now? Hello, hello, hello. I think your messages are a little behind, so I can always... Hopefully you can hear me. Okay, cool. Well, hey, sorry about that. Always technical difficulties when I go live. Uh, First of all, thank you all for showing up. Kind of a last second thing. I just figured I wanted to do one last night, actually, for those of you that were around, but I didn't get home in time and ended up going off to see a movie instead. So, but hey, welcome everybody. I wanted to hit on a couple things. I have a video coming out. Excuse me. I have a video coming out tomorrow morning addressing some of the new news. We just keep getting like a nonstop stream of Wheel of Time news. So I'm kind of excited about that because it means that it's just getting more and more real, I guess, as we go. So I'm pretty darn excited. And I guess to answer your question, Longshanks, I don't know if the medallion would stop the Force. Good question, right? So tell me again if you think Yoda versus Matt. We had some pretty funny responses to my last whiteboard in the last video about Jar Jar Binks being the sound for all the shadow spawn. I think that kind of came to me, and I thought, wow, that would actually almost be terrifying if you heard Trollocs like talking in Jar Jar Binks talk. Be pretty awful. Well, hey guys, as we're kicking off the video here, I've got a couple things that we'll hit on and talk about. But if you don't mind, hit the like button. It really helps YouTube kind of promote the video to let everybody know that I'm even streaming live, and we will we will go from there. But I appreciate all of you for showing up. So here's what I wanted to kind of kick off the conversation tonight, and I really kind of wanted to kick this off. I'm going to address a lot more of the news. There's been even more news that's come out since my last news video on the TV show. So like I was saying earlier, I've got another video that's coming out tomorrow morning that will address that. So I can hit on some of that, but I don't want to spend too much time talking about it, just because I'm going to talk about it again anyway. But this did get me thinking, because I've been kind of piecing together a video in my head about some of the themes of the Wheel of Time books. And so I would love to get some of your all's input and maybe start a conversation here, like what you all think, like if you had to say, here's the theme, or here's what the Wheel of Time is about, what would you say that is? I was thinking about a couple, because obviously there's this idea of good versus evil, right? You've got light versus dark, but I really think more of that, if you kind of tie it around the yin and the yang, the light and the dark, is more about balance, if anything, right? Rafe actually said that when he was talking about, what the book is about. So balance. I'm curious because there's a lot of gender dynamic themes. Obviously, there's kind of flipping roles of genders. There's a free will and predetermination argument to be made. Like, what would you all say are some of the themes? And then more importantly, like, why? What do you explain, I guess, what you mean by it? So like, if you say balance, like, how is it balanced? I'd love to kind of pull this out a little bit. And I'll try to hit on some of your comments and we can kind of talk through it a little bit. But I just thought, as a good theme, it's been a video that I've been kind of spinning around in my head. And I wanted to get some of your input on it. So come with Misa. Can you just imagine Narg talking like Jar Jar Binks? That'd be awesome. Yoda versus Matt. Matt wins, but Baby Yoda versus Matt. Baby Yoda, for sure. Baby Yoda kicks everybody's ass. Although we should probably be careful because not everybody knows who Baby Yoda is yet. So I won't even kind of talk about that. We'll just leave it at that. No spoilers for anything where Baby Yoda might exist. But okay, Daniel Lobo, you think it's the effect that responsibility has on people. I think that is a very good... At the beginning of the audio, or at the end of the audiobooks, there's an interview for the first like 4 or 5 of them, I think. There's an interview with Robert Jordan where he talks about kind of the genesis of his idea for the Wheel of Time. And he thought, what if you took all of the pressure of being a savior and you just placed it on somebody's head? What would that do to them? What would all of that responsibility due to that person. And I think that's certainly a theme. Like what effect does responsibility, what effect does duty, how does it change people? You get to see that with our Emmons Fielders, right? But you get to see that in other respects in other parts of other characters that maybe aren't Emmons Fielders. Like look at what it did to Tom, for instance. Tom was a character at the beginning of the story that had really no responsibilities anymore, and he avoids it. He tries to avoid it, but he keeps getting sucked into feeling responsible for the boys, and then later for Elaine and Nynaeve, and then as it moves on, and then ultimately Moraine. I think that theme is amazing, and there's so many good ones in the Wheel of Time. So I love that you said that, Daniel. That's a great one. Dana Lou Paxton, balance, and I agree. If you care to explain more about what you mean by balance, but there's always a reaction to everything. There is true balance. We don't want all good and no bad. We don't want all bad and no good. We want both, right? Like that's the idea of the yin and the yang, is its balance. Human corruption is exaggerated in some aspects, and others it's parallel to the real world. I'm curious I'd love to explain what you mean by that, Andrew. And by the way, guys, if you're brand new hopping on here, hit the like button. Again, it helps YouTube promote this stuff. It doesn't really show it to people unless you hit like. So if you don't mind clicking over and smashing the like button real quick, that would be amazing. Okay. It's not the theme, this is from Ipa, but I think a theme is also identity. Rand wonders who his parents are, who he is. Nynaeve struggles with her wisdom and Aes Sedai sides, and Perrin with his man and wolf sides. Totally true. I don't think that's the theme, but it is definitely a theme there. And again, if those of you guys are new, the question that's been kind of posed is, what are the themes in the Wheel of Time? So if you're hopping on here, what are some of the themes in the books that you kind of see? And I have a reason for asking this. It's partially for a video, but we're going to lead into a different discussion. But I'd love to see you hear more of this. So again, kind of go back to Ipa's comment, identity. And so much of that's true. Like Rand avoids his identity for so long. Matt avoids his identity. Perrin avoids those things. So it's almost like the inevitability of it. And I think that brings up, I'm curious if you guys feel like one of the major themes is predetermination. Like, are things set to happen the way they're going to happen, or do we actually have choice? Or is choice just an illusion, right? I'm curious what you all think of that. Individuals who grasp for power seem to fail, whereas friends working together seem to prevail. A similar theme is used throughout Avatar: The Last Airbender. By the way, Avatar: The Last Airbender is an amazing show. Even if it's a cartoon, it's outstanding. So let me think through individuals who grasp for power. I mean, what do you think about Rand, though? Because Rand kind of grasps for power, right? Like, Perrin kind of doesn't, he avoids power, but he grabs it. He goes and gets it. I'm curious, like, do you think there are exceptions to that in the story? The major theme is the love history between Tom and Moraine. Theme is I'm not sure what you mean by that, Daniel. Dana Lou Paxton, order and rules versus free choice, and when it's good to break the rules. So yeah, there is this theme of like, you've got, I guess, how do I put this? Order versus the rules. So are there rules, and then you can break them at times? Is it okay ever to tell a little white lie, for instance? And you've got some characters who are kind of pure morality, and I think you see that most epitomized in Galad, right? You've got Galad being this like perfect figure, right? You've got Galad being like, everything is black and white, and then his arc through the story is to learn to be that things are gray, like that there's not always a clear right and wrong. I think that's certainly a major theme in that. Rand doesn't want power until midway through, and that's when things start to go wrong for him. I think there's a point to be made on that. He did what he had to do because that's what he thought he had to be. True. Here's the major theme that I think my first time reading through the books, here's what I caught. I caught that I felt like there was a very distinct, like without thinking too hard about it, I felt like Robert Jordan was trying to pit men versus women. Like it just felt that way to me. And I don't know why it felt that way. I don't think that was his actual intention, was to pit them against each other. But I think more importantly, it was to kind of flip roles, right? Like to kind of put women in positions of power that men would traditionally have. And then what would that look like? And then kind of have absolute power corrupting. So you see the Aes Sedai as kind of this corrupt body. But there's always these like, hey, all men do this or all women do this. The Emmons Fielder men, for instance, have this like crazy toxic masculinity going on, right? Like they've got this, I can't hurt a woman ever, even if she's trying to kill me, I couldn't do it. Or I will, sacrifice myself. Like there's a whole lot of playing with gender roles, frankly, that I think goes on. Do you guys feel like that's a theme? What are your thoughts on it? Was it executed well? Does it feel contrived? Like, what are your thoughts on that? Ipa says, I think that he also set men and women against each other so that he could later show how when they work together, they can accomplish so much more. That's a smart insight. I agree with that. I think there's... I think that there's certainly a lot of that going on. I think it was a setup for the ultimate conclusion of men and women. And that really comes back to that idea of balance again, right? Like you've got the scales tipped where women have the most of the power at the beginning of the story. And so those scales are not balanced. And because it's out of balance, it feels wrong. But later on, there's a lot more balance, right? And so I feel like that's part of it. Here's the reason I'm asking. And I feel like here's maybe the core of where we can get into even some deeper discussion on this. The reason I'm asking about themes for you all is this. When they start talking about the show, right? Whenever you look at a theme of a show, there's an overarching theme or a message that they're trying to get across in a show. So when you sit down to write, when you storyboard out, like I don't want to say that you're necessarily pushing an agenda. It's not so much that, but more of a theme that you want to address. So look at like Westworld, for instance, some of the really good shows. It's not just that they're telling a story, but they're telling a story through the lens of kind of examining a part of humanity or a part of who we are. And the reason I ask this is in the first season of Wheel of Time, what do you all think some of the themes that, number one, they will, or number two, that they should address? Because I do think gender, male, female, like I feel like that's going to be a part of it, but there's also this trust thing. Like I'll talk about this in my video tomorrow, but there's been a leak, okay, about part of season 1 of the show where we kind of know one of the plot pieces, and it's a little bit different from the book, in the same event in the book. And it plays into a theme that's happening with this idea of innocence versus good versus evil, and when is breaking the rules a good thing? When does the greater good outweigh the smaller event? Okay. And so I'm curious whether or not you think this theme, like for instance, setting the boys against Moraine, which is definitely going to be a theme. It was a theme in the books, and I feel like they're going to focus on it in the show. What do you all think some of the themes that they should be addressing in the show would be? So let me read some of your comments on this. It's like Emmons Field is a slice of Tolkien's embedded in the book. Like the romances of men dying for women and those other related themes. Andrew, I think that's a really solid point. I mean, I think very deliberately Emmons Field was set up to be like the Shire, very deliberately. I think RJ tries to play with the gender thing, but it's not the theme, just something that he was trying to do to study in the books. I think it was a theme in a sense. I think it was part of that balance theme, though, Daniel. I feel like it's, again, like I was saying, I feel like he's got more power in the hands of women, so that's kind of counterbalancing or not balanced at the beginning, and I feel like that balance of power shifts throughout the show. And then it shifts both really fast towards Rand, and then it kind of shifts back again to where they're somewhat equal. 100% the central theme, male versus female. That's why I love Rand and Nynaeve working together. Agreed. What show are we talking about? The Wheel of Time television show, Bionic. I'm currently listening to Perrin, find out that his family's been, that's a rough spot. Hey, guys, if you're just hopping in, by the way, hit the like button if you're hopping in on the stream. It really helps YouTube promote promote the live stream. So if you can hit the like button and hopped on, I appreciate it. I love watching those likes pop up. But yeah, I forgot the show is only just starting. Only 7 books in, so I often forget they will need to focus on the first book and things in it. Yeah, Andrew, first of all, that's awesome that you're 7 books in. I wish I was rereading the series for the first time, because you're in like the middle of, to me, like the best part. And even though it slows down a little bit, that slowdown part is kind of exciting. So how many of you want me to talk about or mention the leak right now? Or would you rather wait until the show tomorrow, or till the video tomorrow? I don't want to spoil anybody. So let me know if you're against me talking about the leak right now. It's not a major one, but I do think it's a bigger theme. There is going to be a video where I'll go into more depth about it, but I can talk about it right now. So do you think I should wait, or should I talk about it now? I don't mind it, because I'm going to go into way more depth in the video. We're going to analyze it a little bit, but so I certainly don't mind talking about it now. It's not really a book spoiler per se, because it's kind of fairly soon in the first book. So, guys, Brandon Sanderson accidentally leaked something. If you don't know this, it is fairly minor. Here's what happened. So we've got, if you guys have seen the scripts of the video, like we saw the table read, where we see this little dialogue between Matt and Rand, where they're talking about Moraine, or we're assuming they're talking about Moraine, and you saw what she did to the ferry, or you saw what she did back there. They're basically scared of her, right? Well, Brandon Sanderson released a picture on the set where he's basically standing in the mist. He mentions in the picture that this is about the time they're filming the part where they're crossing the Taryn River. Okay, so they're crossing the ferry. So the leak was basically in the metadata of the picture. So if you're not familiar with what metadata is where if you take a picture on your iPhone, for instance, it stores the location that you're at. It stores what time you took the picture, things like that. And then you can actually enter a description into that picture. Well, in the picture that Brandon Sanderson leaked, it had metadata that describes the scene. So what it described in the scene was that they had just crossed the river, that land wouldn't let them go back. And after Moraine had presumably sunk the ferry, Hightower, the ferryman, had died trying to get back to the ferry. Okay, so the leak is that we find out that Hightower dies in the process. Like, so when they're crossing at Taryn Ferry, when they're crossing the river, the ferryman that they woke up in the middle of the night ends up dying as a result of Moraine sinking the ferry. Okay, so assuming, and Longsheng said this, assuming that this was intentional. It could be intentional if they didn't know, if they knew what they were leaking. It could also be unintentional if they had no idea what they were doing. I would assume it's probably intentional, but we see one of them die, which is different. It's a slight different from the book, slight difference. But what it's doing is it's playing into this greater good. Moraine doesn't let them go back. She sinks the ferry, which scares them. She doesn't directly kill the guy, at least it seems like, but he dies. Do they trust Moraine or not? Do they trust the Aes Sedai with power? And again, I'll talk more about this, and she isn't directly killing him, to be clear. Um, I'll hit on this more in the video tomorrow, but it is, to me, part of it is what themes do they want to address in the show? Okay. So the reason I brought up themes earlier, and we started off this whole conversation with talking about what are the themes of the books, and then what do we feel like the themes that need to be um, baked into the first season of the show. I'll come back to like the show not Westworld. I'm sorry, the show Watchmen on HBO right now. My opinion, the best show on television right now. I flat out haven't seen any television this good in a long time. Highly, highly recommend Watchmen. Even if you're not a fan of the comics, like they do such a great job of, first of all, showing, not telling. Um, there's themes baked into the show where you're kind of a little piece by piece, like an onion, you're peeling back. Like, what are they getting at? What's the central theme, or what's the message? What do we learn from the way these people interact? I mean, they're addressing themes of racism embedded in society, and just there's so many different themes at play. And great shows always have that at the core of what they are. So when you're telling a story, you're not simply just telling a story. You're telling a story that is that, I guess I'll put it this way: you're telling a story that has a message to it. Not necessarily like a social justice message. It could just be anything, but what theme are we addressing? What's the art at play at the center of it? And so what do you all want to see? Okay, is the theme for the Wheel of Time show. That's what I want to know. What are the themes that you want to see? Because we know there are going to be changes, and we know that television requires this. Like, there's not a good television show that doesn't address a theme at the core of it. That's how it's made. That's how the art is done. So what do we want to see? That's what I want to know. What do you all want to see? So let me hit on this. She tells them that she would rather kill them herself than let the Dark One have them. That's pretty extreme. She wanted them to fear her. I think she did. I think she felt like, Tracy, I feel like Moraine wanted them to fear her because that was the way to control them in her eyes. A lot of it was control. Moraine is a micromanager, right? That was part of her issue in dealing with Rand, is Rand refused to be micromanaged. It always seems strange to me that they didn't trust her based off of superstition alone, so I agree with adding more concrete reasons for them to question her. I agree, and again, we don't have the benefit in watching a show, or at least new viewers won't. They won't have the benefit of knowing lore about Aes Sedai. And Moraine comes across as very nice at the beginning, right? Like, you have to make yourself question her a little bit. Your audio gets weird. I apologize. I don't know why it's getting weird every now and then. Maybe it's just the internet sucks right now. I hope not. But the first season, I want to see the boys dealing with fear, especially when they realize that Dark Friends and Ba'alzamon are after them. I want them to feel their fear. I agree. I don't know. I definitely want this. Daniel Green did a video on this, and it's so true. I want this to be terrifying. I want it to be almost feel like a thriller, in a sense. So they need to be in constant fear. So I agree with that. Do I think that's a common theme at the core of it? A theme would be more how you deal with fear. Like, what are the ways that you cope with it, right? So I want to see, like, what do you feel like fear would accomplish? Like, what's the theme at play there? Moraine, I think, wanted to keep the mystical aspect of being Aes Sedai, so that they all heard from stories, in order to not have a mutiny-type behavior from the boys and girls. I almost feel this way about it, Andrew. I think Moraine, I don't know that it was necessarily that. I feel like she felt like there was too much to explain, that she already knew, so they should just do what she said. She didn't feel the need to explain why she was doing the things she was doing. And we find out later, Moraine was mostly right. Just about everything Moraine did was correct, right? But she just didn't have time to explain it. And maybe that was is she never really explained the why. Just do what I say. One theme, Stubble McShave. This is a great one, man. How far can one go in fighting evil before becoming like the evil itself? That's a theme you see a lot in literature, but it's definitely one at play here because everything Rand does, spoilers for later in the books, but I mean, I won't get, this is more thematic. It's not a spoiler, but everything that Rand does as he grows in power is to fight the shadow, but in fighting the shadow, I mean, he's not always great. I'll just leave it at that without going into spoilers. So how far can you go in fighting evil? And I think that's a theme you could maybe address with Moiraine. How far does her lack of caring about collateral damage, how far does that go? Is it okay that she lets Hightower die and maybe doesn't go back for him? Or is it okay that the couple times in the books that we see her not heal people because she doesn't have time? Like, is that okay? Dana Lou Paxton, whole show, challenge prejudice, fight evil, find the best in each other and each culture, and find a way to work together. I agree. Prejudice is something that can be built in, and prejudice doesn't have to be racial. I think sometimes we assume that it. I think that's the most common way that we see it in our culture. But we all carry prejudices. We carry socioeconomic prejudices. We carry prejudices about other countries, other states, other cities. I mean, it could be the high school, the other high school. I mean, you have prejudices that that's kind of the way human brains function. And so sometimes we have to fight through those because they're not always correct. We can take anecdotal, hey, this one time this one thing happened, and so therefore I'm going to apply it to everybody I ever meet that's similar. And you can't do that. All right, that's not reality. But that's the easy way that our brains cope with things, which is why prejudice happens a lot. And so Robert Jordan very deliberately, and you heard Brandon Sanderson talk about this in his interview with Daniel Green, by the way. Robert Jordan very deliberately avoided racial prejudice. He avoided prejudices based on skin color, but he focused more on prejudice based on gender and more on prejudice based on culture. I'm about to sneeze. Thank you. Okay. But it was something he very deliberately did. Okay. He set up a world where he deliberately made it so it was not about skin color or racial biases, anything like that. But the prejudices that we see in the books are based on gender. They're based on culture. Okay. And so I think there's a part of that certainly in there. Sorry, guys, I'm so bad about getting to some of these comments. So if I skipped it, you'll have to just say it again. Okay, to understand what Moiraine did, you need to see how Aes Sedai in general treat people. They don't often explain. They just expect other people will respect their decisions. And right, and they don't have reason not to do that. Most people do listen to them, right? They have power, and people with power expect people to listen. I'm at the point I'm at in the books, number 7. You really appreciate how awesome Moiraine was in the other books compared to the other Aes Sedai and the others who have other forms of power. So true, Andrew. Just keep reading, man. It just gets better from here. I won't say too much more, but I'm excited for where you're at in the books. I'll just say that. Stubble McShave with another great theme here. The corruption of information over space and time. What would the world be like if information wasn't instant? I mean, guys, look at our world right now. How screwed up is information transfer right now? Fake news exists. There's, flat out lies that are told every day by politicians. There's whatever it is, there's a whole lot of misinformation out there, right? Imagine if your whole information, or the information that you got, was anecdotal and dependent on other people to give it. Like, how much would that screw up? That's a giant game of telephone over even though I pick on Gawain, for instance, for his stupidity sometimes, he's relying on second, third, fourth, fifth-hand information. And that's how it was passed around. That's a great... Stubble McShave is on fire here. These are great. I definitely felt at the start of the books, magical plot devices were invented to solve the problems at hand. But by the end, I realized that the world always had those rules, and I just didn't know them yet. That is a spectacular point, and one of the things that Robert Jordan was amazing at. One of the best things in his writing, in my opinion. You don't realize he tells the story through narrators that are unreliable, meaning that we experience the world in the eye of the world primarily through Rand, and then a little bit of Perrin's point of view. So we are learning things at the time they are learning things. So for instance, if you didn't realize this, here's a spoiler for the end of Eye of the World. If you haven't read it yet, I don't know why you're watching a live stream about Wheel of Time, but at the end of Eye of the World, Rand skims. He uses a skimming platform. He creates stairs as a skimming platform. It's later said that that's what he did. He didn't know that that's what he was doing because he didn't know it. We didn't know it. So it just seemed like things were happening. If you go back and read the end of Eye of the World, it makes a lot more sense once you finish the series than it does the first time you read it, which you could argue that's not great writing, but I think it's outstanding knowing that the series is what it is. It's just it's a masterful job. This is why this series can be reread more than anything else, in my opinion. You can reread this series 20 and 30 times and find new stuff over and over and over again. It gets better every time. Jennifer Wood, happy Thanksgiving. And Jennifer, happy Thanksgiving to you. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody. If you're not an American, apologize, but Thanksgiving's a holiday where we give thanks. So I am incredibly appreciative of all of you guys that I get to make a channel and talk about the Wheel of Time. It's a dream of mine to do it. I'm glad that we get to continue to grow this. And so I appreciate all of you. One of the things that I typically do on my Thanksgiving, I've been doing this for years, is I'll write letters to people, just letting them know it's something that I consciously do, but to try to write down reasons I'm thankful. And I think one of the things, here's my open letter to everybody else. I meant to hit on this at the beginning, but I'm just really thankful for this community. I'm thankful that we are at a place now where we're going to get to see a show that I never thought we'd get to see. I'm at a place where I'm thankful that they're putting the care they're putting into the show, that they're hiring the people they're hiring, they're spending the money they're spending. The set photos look amazing so far. I know it's going to be different. I'm going to respect it as a totally different entity from the book, but all of this to kind of put it all together, I'm just thankful that I'm at this place in time where we can kind of see that. So appreciate that. And thank you, William. I appreciate you. And guys, I'll give a special thank you to any of you guys that are supporters on Patreon. I know a lot of you are. I see a lot of you in the comments. You have no idea what that means, to know that you guys care, that you want me to keep making stuff, and that you're supporting the channel. And we have so many ideas. I've got a team of people that work with me on the channel and kind of content. And I keep hinting at this because it's something that I want to get out there so badly. It's just not ready. Is the new community website that we're building. I'm super excited to get that out. I can't wait to start showing all of you what we've got, but we're still in the middle of building it, and it's just not at a place where we can make it public yet. But I'm just thankful that we're going to have these platforms to continue to grow this community. I will give a quick plug and shout out. I'm going to be at JordanCon, guys. I know Daniel Green will be as well. I would love to see any and all of you at JordanCon. In Atlanta, it's April, I want to say 16th through the 19th or something like that. But I would just love to see all you there. So keep that out there. Put it on your calendar. Figure out how to get there. It's going to be, if you are a patron and you're at that kind of $10 tier and higher, we're going to have a reception for folks. I'll provide some food. We're going to just get together and hang out, and I'm excited to meet a lot of you. And so definitely get to JordanCon if you can. I'd appreciate it, just to meet y'all. But in any case, I thank you guys for a lot of the content. William Rogers, thank you so much, my man. That's nuts. Thank you for the $100 donation, bro. I thank you. Again, you guys don't know what it means to be. It takes a lot of time to put YouTube content together, especially when you don't have a lot of it. And so to have people that care makes you want to keep doing it. And I appreciate you. Absolutely. Thank you, William. And guys, William just joined our Discord community. if you are not in the Discord channel, make sure you click the link below the video, like below my face right now, and join Discord. We get to do this all the time. We get to talk, and I'm fairly active on there. There's a nice little community. It's kind of a replacement for message boards, like where we used to do theories. William joined on there. Yeah, he's William 101, my man. He's the man. So for all of you, make sure you join the Discord. Get a part of that. It's awesome. We've had a lot of fun there, and we'll continue to do that. If you want to figure out how you can help build the website we're building, I'm taking volunteers, so that's the place to do it. So, hey guys, I appreciate you again. Huge thank you to you, William, for that. You're the man. I appreciate you. So I know a lot of you are already a part of Discord, and it's fun. We get to talk live chat on. If you're a part of a certain tier, you can hop in the voice chat in the Discord, and we talk. So. Again, it's a lot of fun. So kind of back to what we were talking about. I want to kind of shift back. I'm sorry I got off topic there, but what are the other themes in the show that you want to see? I have a couple ideas on my own, but I'm curious. I've got the hiccups. I don't know where they're coming from, but I want to see what you guys all think like some of the themes in the show could be. Like what are the overarching themes? I'll tell you mine. I love the idea of the gender dynamic. I want them to keep that from the books. But I really want to get back to, I think balance needs to be at the core of it. Balance to me undermines, or I should say, sits at the core of all of the other themes in the book. Okay. Balance in terms of good versus evil, balance in terms of being right and wrong. Like, is there a gray in the middle? Like, I feel like it addresses a lot of the issues, and learning to see both sides of a discussion. I don't necessarily want them to make the shadow seem good, like that it was a good thing. I think it's okay to have a distinction of good versus evil. But I don't want them to make villains black or white, just like I don't want them to make heroes black or white. Like, I want them to humanize the Forsaken, for instance. I want them to feel. I want to understand their motivations. I have a video that I keep pushing back because there's more news that keeps coming out, but I want to see more of the villains. Like, the villains that I find to be compelling are the ones where I can understand why they do what they do. I don't have to agree with it, but I can understand it. Okay. Evil for the sake of evil, while that's not a horrible plot device sometimes, I really like to see that more of insanity than I would just straight up evil for the sake of evil. Like, I want to see more on that. Shuckins. Oh, awesome, man. Appreciate the donation. About Discord. Are there the previous videos saved? Are there videos? Not sure how it works. Is it a message board only? Here's what I would tell you. First of all, yeah, I have links to all the videos. You can go to my YouTube channel anytime and watch all of my old videos. They're all there. We link the new ones there. We talk about other ones. The best way to learn Discord is just to click the link and sign up for it. You'll get a feel for how it works just by signing up for it. It's real simple. It's basically just think of like a group text, but you can turn the notifications off. But it's basically different rooms that you can hop in. And if you're reading the books and you're not sure you want to get into a place where you're going to have stuff spoiled, we have different rooms for each book where you can talk about spoilers up to that book. So I think it's great to be a part of that. I wanted to hit on this because Stubble McShave has been on fire with his theme change in status, such as Rand becoming the dragon and Swan dropping. Watching people power levels change, like the dynamics in a fall from grace or a rise to power. You see a lot of rises to power. You see a couple falls from grace, and it's kind of the changing of an age to a new one. So there's a lot of themes at play there. To me, again, it's balance. balance in the little things make it complete too. Even if things like making sure you don't drink too much wine and then having the bigger themes of why things need to be balanced overall. Agreed. I think it's at the core of almost all the themes. The amount of times that miscommunication affects the story, I could imagine that the audience going to react to those moments. Yeah, sort of like, I guess the analogy I use, if you sort of like when you're watching a horror movie or something and you look at a character and make a stupid decision and you get kind of like, what the heck? Like, why did you do that? Like they ran upstairs when they should have run out the back because you knew something they don't know. That's a frequent occurrence in the Wheel of Time. No one special. The think of the Netflix show Orange is the New Black with the flashback scenes of how the women got into prison. They should do that with the Forsaken. Yeah, I don't. It may be something as simple as flashbacks. It might be just getting to see more interactions between each other or how they go about their decision making. But I want to understand them more. I think it's okay to make Semirog, for instance, a sociopath. Like I think that's fine. I don't think they need to make her human. I think they can make her seeming evil, but I want to see her getting joy and having her come across as what she is, psycho. Anybody that enjoys inflicting pain is mentally ill, and that's okay. I want to see that. So again, if you're just joining us here, we're talking about what themes do we want to see in the show. And so I'm wanting to hear all of your thoughts, like what are the overarching themes that you want to see? Stubble McShade, were you a part of Theoryland, Dragonmount, or any of the other sites? I was active on Theoryland under another name. I was very active on Wattmania back in the day. And I don't even actually remember what my screen name was or what I commented on, but I used to be very active on like the theory boards there on Wattmania. That's before it was absorbed. I think Dragonmount absorbed it. I could be wrong. But yeah, I was pretty active on Wattmania when I was reading the books for the first time. Guys, I'm curious, how many of you picked up the books after they were all finished, and how many of you were reading them as they were coming out? I'm curious to find that out. I would like to see more emphasis on the fact that Perrin, Rand, and Mat really tried to avoid their fates. Yeah, again, it's almost this avoiding running. They're ironic in that they don't want power. Like none of them really, although Mat kind of wants. Mat's rise to power is different from Perrin's, which is different than Rand's. Like it's very unique how they all arrive at these places of extreme power level in terms of leadership, in terms of just first of all their personal abilities, like their powers themselves are pretty crazy too. So, hey Ross, theme the gray agencies, aka White Cloaks, Red Aja. Yeah, I really am excited to see. So coming back to the idea of balance, like, okay, let's take the White Cloaks. To me, the White Cloaks are an outstanding, if you take them as a whole, they're an outstanding quote unquote villain because they have an arc as a group. Like the White Cloaks as a group start off as essentially objectively villains, right? But over the course of the series, I don't want to say they're redeemed, but you can understand how they got where they got, and they fight on the side of the light. I don't feel like that's spoiling too much. But the White Cloaks are a great example of a great story arc. And so when you come back to the idea of balance, they're very out of balance in terms of their views and their prejudices and their ways of viewing the world. And over the course of the novels, of the different events that happen, you get to see them come back into sort of a balance of where they are in their belief system. And so I do think that comes back into that theme of balance. And I think that's certainly something I want to see in the show. Sorry, guys, I'm getting a cold and all that. I'm not feeling so wonderful. So 9 books is where you started. I picked up the books, by the way. I picked up the books, and I want to say it was like 1999 or something, or 2000. It was right before Winter's Heart came out that I'd read. I read all the books in a matter of up to that point. So I want to say it was like 8 or 9 books. 8 books, I think. And I read them all in a row in like a 4-month period. And I was like, okay, I need more. let me get in, and Winter's Heart was coming out, and I remember going and buying it and loving it. Even though for a lot of people they'll say that's the beginning of the slog, I loved it. Shane Dunning, appreciate the donation, man. Thank you so much. It says, hope they can keep or expand the humor that's in the books. I agree. I actually think humor will be easier to do on screen. I just hope they don't overdo the humor. I want it to be dark, but I don't want it to be depressing dark. Like, there should be some humor. Even if you take Game of Thrones, like Tyrion Lannister provided some sarcastic humor. I think little bits like that, or Hot Pie, or things like that from Game of Thrones, added some levity to an otherwise very depressing show. And I don't want to have this upbeat, everybody smiling and happy type thing. I want it to feel horrible. But okay. I think many themes that have been brought up are parts of the bigger theme of personal gain versus common good. And that's very astute observation, Ipa. There are a lot of examples of where the greater good is at play. And so do we want to sacrifice the small for the greater good? And we see kind of Rand at the one spectrum, like the Emmons Fielders at the beginning are like, the greater good doesn't matter. We can't sacrifice even the small things. To, as they grow in power, they're forced to make small sacrifices. Rand starts to see people as what they can do for him, because the greater good is so important. I mean, and I think it tips the scales to almost to the point that he starts losing who he is. So I feel like that's great. The Forsaken want to gain power while the good guys are working to unite humankind against the Shadow. Yep. But yet they're forced to do similar things to accomplish both of the same goal, or different goals, I should say. Robert Jordan loved the theme of myth and story and how they changed over time and distance. I want to see that in the show. Yeah, Ross, somebody said that earlier to a little differently, and I think it's an outstanding point. Like, first of all, the game of telephone that's played in real time, like things that are happening now, and me finding out about what's going on in Falma. I've heard this rumor, right? But then there's even more of, hey, many centuries ago, this was their idea. And a lot of the things that the fan base takes as facts. I'll give you an example of this. Varen makes a comment in The Great Hunt where they pass the Choden Call, right? And she says, only 3 Aes Sedai could manage that, and Logain would be burned to a crisp. That's what she assumes based on what she has heard or what she has learned, what she thinks she knows. We later find out she doesn't know what she's talking about. Moraine says a lot of the same things, like the things that they spit out as knowledge are not always accurate, and a lot of that has to do with just the loss of information over time. And it's a very weird circumstance because in our world, even though we've lost information from the past, we're significantly more advanced than we were. They are significantly less advanced than they were. Okay, and there was knowledge that's been lost, and so there are times where they assume they know. Scott T248, sending this as I started right before Winter's Heart. Also, this is Mandarb on Discord. Thank you, man. What's up? Keep up the good work, my friend. Hey, I appreciate you guys. I am thankful for all of you. Again, another plug for Discord. Guys, we maintain kind of regular communication on Discord. So if you are not a part of our Discord server, please become a part of it. So I think the themes of mental health, Rand, among others, have a very traumatic experience that shouldn't be brushed aside to move the plot. Agreed, Tahoe, Nevada. Agreed. Again, guys, if you haven't watched Daniel Green's interview with Brandon Sanderson, I know it's long. Go watch that video. They address a lot of really good topics, one of which is mental health and how Brandon Sanderson writes mental health and what he's learned about it over time. I feel like it's a great topic to address. It's obviously something that's very pertinent in our world right now. And I want to see them do that justice without stereotype or pegging mental health. Like, I want to see it be real. PTSD not just be craziness, but real. Matt's arc of falling upward. If the pattern itself is your safety net, it's hard to credit him with much of anything. Ta'Veren is a sword that cuts both ways. Always a controversial topic. And I agree with you for the most part. I mean, the Ta'Viren, Robert Jordan, you could either look at writing Ta'Viren into your books as being a masterful way of making your characters have power without having to explain where it came from, like that they just get lucky or things kind of go their way because the pattern wants it to, and it is a bigger part of that whole predetermination of the wheel type thing. And so Matt was destined to do what he did, and so the pattern made it happen. But I also think that's kind of discounting a lot of Matt's character. And I think Matt can be a misunderstood character. It can seem like he's failing upward. But I also think, though, that a lot of Matt is Matt's stories that he tells himself. Matt tells himself or almost lies to himself about reality a lot of times. And so like, for instance, Matt is very heroic, but will tell himself that he's not a hero. He will do things that most people would not do, even though he tells himself he won't do them. Like he won't go save these people. He won't. He doesn't want to take care of Ulver. He doesn't want to, but yet he does these things because he has this very strong sense of morality in terms of duty. Matt's an idiot sometimes, at least outwardly sometimes, and I think that's part of why Matt is a very difficult character for Brandon Sanderson to write, because I think there's definitely a degree of failing upwards, but there's also I think there's also a degree with Matt of it is who he is, and some of that's built into his character. And the power that he gets is just an extension of who he already was. And so, yeah, it allows him to screw, but he also is really good at some of the things he does. He was good with a quarterstaff, for instance. That wasn't entirely just his luck. I mean, it's kind of explained away as being, hey, he was good with that, and you can beat swordsmen with a quarterstaff. But I think Matt is a very unique character. That's my opinion on Matt. Is he my favorite character? I know for a lot of people he is. He's not my favorite. But I think Nynaeve is my favorite character. Well, I've already said that. But I do respect Matt for what he is. So I agree with that, and I don't agree with it. Leave it at that. Stubble McShay with another great theme. Slavery and loss of free will. Bonding mortars against their will, the Shan-Chan with Soldam and Damani. Yep. I really think that's at the core. One of the other big core themes is the idea of the wheel. And this goes into, we'll get into some Wheel of Time philosophy here. Shamael goes to the shadow because he thinks that it's inevitable that the Dark One will win. Because if time is cyclical, given infinite times of the wheel spinning, the Dark One will eventually win. And if he eventually wins, then he will break the wheel. And so it made sense to follow the shadow. That was Shamael's logic. Which seems right, but then it plays into this whole predestination. Does the Dark One actually have the choice or the ability to ever be fully free? Can he win? And the answer is, doesn't seem like, in my opinion, from the philosophy, it doesn't seem like he can, because even though they tried to break Rand, they couldn't, right? Things conspire to veer and happen. Like a lot of that, are people pegged into the roles that they get? And I know that's a little distant from the idea of slavery, but are we slaves to destiny? Rand did not have a choice. Perrin did not have a choice. Matt did not have a choice. Are we slaves to destiny? Is free will an illusion, or is it real? And that's a part of the Wheel of Time discussion right there. The idea that we actually even have agency. Mental health, but not our real things. Don't give Rand a personality disorder. Instead, imitate the way people react to it by having Rand feel judged, unsupported, or not believed. Yeah, and I think they can do this by showing Rand's descent into madness, and the way that people will react to him. Do they only follow him at a certain point because they're afraid of him? Because at one point, Rand is very capable, but then it seems later on like Rand is less capable and more just scary. Like we don't know what he'll do, so we kind of listen because we're supposed to. And Grendel, yes, Grendel is the best. The Grendel is my favorite Forsaken. Yes, that one's definitely true. I love Grendel. Like she's a very complex character. I think she's executed well, and I think she plays with marketing in a sense. She markets herself as something that she's not deliberately because it gives her power over other people. if she controls that narrative. I just think it's amazing. All right, Joe Polly, theme, duty and how to deal with it. Rand's duty becomes as heavy as a mountain. He found the key to meeting his duty when he summited the mountain and fulfilled inside a mountain. Yeah. That Rand's arc, that's why you may not like Rand. There's a lot of people that don't like Rand as a main character, and that's okay. I don't think Rand's meant to be all that likable. But his arc is really good, in my opinion. I feel like it's one of the best written. I talked about this in I ranked the top 10 characters in the Wheel of Time. You can go back and find that video, but I feel like Rand is a really good character, not because he's the main character, but because I feel like his arc it's very subtle over time. And of course we get the most time with him, but it's a subtle little bit where we see him. There's no one point where he changes, right? Even Dumais Wells, where he really makes the biggest change afterwards, you could kind of see that coming. And so where he ends up in Gathering Storm, where he ends up in Towers of Midnight, like I love that arc. Okay. I don't generally like character whose salient trait is likability. Explain what you mean by that. I'm curious what you mean a little bit, but having a really likable main character all the time can be boring. Seeing it make mistakes is what makes the books not feel predictable. Agreed. I don't think Rand needs to be likable. I don't think any of the characters, for that matter, need to be likable. I don't think Nynaeve is likable. She's my favorite character, but I don't think she's likable. In fact, I think there are times where Nynaeve is, for lack of a better term, can come across pretty, you know the word. I mean, but that's part of it. You understand if you get in her head about why she's acting that way. That's why I find her compelling as a character, because of what motivates her. I love the fact that Nynaeve in a lot of cases is a hypocrite. I love it because I think it's real. I think it's very, very real. I know people like that. I'm like that. I think in all respects, I think that's true. I like nuance in people because I think that's reality. I don't want any characters that are caricatures. Okay, where they're just an over exaggeration of one thing or another. Like Grendel is a caricature, but she's doing it deliberately. She's deliberately showing herself being decadent and all these things, which is why I like it. One reason I like Egwene so much is that she isn't always nice to people. In fact, she's got lots and lots of flaws. She isn't the best at anything she does either. She's just a keen observer. See, I agree. I will say this till I'm blue in the face. Egwene to me is my sister. I've got a sister who, for lack of a better way of putting it, I mean, she can come across as a know-it-all, but she frequently does know it all, right? Like Egwene is that person. Egwene thinks she knows best all the time. And a lot of times Egwene does know best, but she can come across as very condescending. She can come across as a little, like I always felt like it was really weird for the first half of the book, the way she treated, like Rand's got this crazy rise to power. People are following him and she talks to him like he's an idiot. And I think there's a good part to that. And then I also think it's like Egwene be a little bit more self-aware. So like Egwene certainly has flaws. And I think I can understand why people don't like Egwene. I think it's later when we see kind of Egwene's rise to power, we get to learn about a little bit more about who she is at the core and why she is the way she is. And I feel like she's just consistently written. That's what I like about Egwene. I feel like she's very, very consistently written. Another theme from Stubble McShave, who is on fire. Clash of cultures, Aiel, Shan-Chan, Borderlands, Seafolk, Kyrian, and politics, and different Borderlanders and several others. Yeah, I think that's at the core of Robert Jordan. He was trying to, again, his goal was not to set out and show prejudice through the eyes of maybe like racial prejudice, but more cultural prejudice. And again, the way that people refer to the Shan-Chan or the exotic sea folk, or Kyrianan being stuck up, or Damani being temptresses. Like these are prejudices that people have in the story. So Yeah, I think it's really, really, I think that's a big theme. Ipa, Egwene has that "how can you not understand this simple thing" attitude towards Rand, which reminds me of how me and my sister would react to what each other do. Yeah, I agree. She never, it's in one mind, she never changes the way she views Rand, but like that's inherently the good and the bad in her. Like she should have changed to, because Rand is who he is, and she never acknowledges that. But yet on the flip side of that, it keeps their relationship real because um, she never lets him think too highly of himself. Let's just put it that way. So I mean, to elaborate on that idea of cultures clashing is interesting. What defines country type borders and how one steps over a borderline means instant change of culture. And honestly, I don't know that that necessarily is so true. I don't think that actually is a major change in culture over borders. Because there is a gradualness to it. Like they talk about times like if you're in the city of Erangel, as opposed to, I think it's Marine or Morian, or I forget, Marone, that's what it was. On the Kyrianan side, like those are very similar cultures, even though they're right across a river. There isn't too much of a difference there, but if you look at the Kyrianan nobility versus the Andoran nobility, there is a culture change there. So I do think that's part of it. So, well, hey guys, we are past an hour here. I don't typically do much more than an hour on these, but I appreciate all of you for joining me. Kind of a late notice thing. Figured we could get together this. I should have a video dropping tomorrow morning, addressing some more news even. Thank you, everybody, to all of you who donated. You guys are awesome. I'm very thankful for all of you. I'm thankful for you guys joining me on here, and that I even get to have a place where I get to sit here and talk to people about the wheel time. It's great to be able to nerd out with you all, and thank you, nerds, for joining us. And again, if you have not joined the Discord server, check that out. Check out the merch sale below. Check out the Patreon if you want to support the channel and support what we're doing. A lot of you already do. Again, I appreciate all of you. Thank you guys so much. And again, join the Discord. Everybody who's on here, join the Discord server. Be a part of what we're doing. But anyways, take care, everybody. Thank you.